First of all, we are unique because this is the only worldwide French-speaking media for expats. So we are, I guess our competitors is doing half of the audience we are doing. So we are already quite unique and proud of that. The reason for it is we mixed the local news, very close to people, practical tips to families, to people having trouble with getting visas, getting the vaccination, getting the right papers. So we help on that. That's why people read this media here. And at the same time, we are close to the big world and the politics, the economics, etc. So we give also insights on this. So this combination is quite powerful.
What's up, ladies and gentlemen? You're now watching Kinetic Outcome, and we are with 𝙇𝙤 𝙀𝙪, founder of
𝙁𝙞𝙙𝙀 𝙀𝙪.
Yep. So let me repronounce that. 𝙁𝙀𝙀 𝙀𝙪, right?
Correct.
And yeah, quick introduction of yourself and how did it start?
Well, I'm a French guy. I'm something like 50 years old. I've been in China, around China for 10 years, something. A bit more than 3 years in Hong Kong. 𝙁𝙀𝙀 𝙀𝙪 started without me, far before I started it here. So it started 20 years back in Mexico. Was created by a French guy. And myself, I've been running this newspaper for the Hong Kong edition for something like 3 years. This is basically the French community newspaper in Hong Kong, probably the only daily French-speaking newspaper. So we go online and we also run events for the French community.
Okay, and let's dig deeper, like where you were born, how did you get here, what's your story?
Yeah. Well, I was born in Lyon, in the south of France, a city famous for French cuisine. And then my father is from North Africa, my mother is from the Lyon region, so I'm myself a melting pot or something. And I've been knowing my wife. She's Chinese. We've been knowing in Switzerland in a previous life. So I've been basically running a few businesses back in Europe before I started doing my way here. Following my wife in the first place, and then running a few businesses back in China, for instance, running a tourism agency for 7 years, and then starting the newspaper here 3 years back.
I was wondering, were you running the newspaper together with the businesses or just focused on the newspaper?
Well, I'm the owner, so you can't run a newspaper without being in charge of business. So my focus is not only writing articles, so we have journalists for this, but I'm in charge of the development of the newspaper, so meeting some of the sponsors, some of the partners. Together with them, we promote their companies for the newspaper with advertising, events, interviews. So we are basically a media. Medias these days don't make so much money, but at least we survive and we develop. And we have been currently the first French-speaking newspaper abroad. I mean not Hong Kong, but the whole network of the 𝙁𝙀𝙀𝙀 𝙀𝙪 in the world. We are now in 70 cities in the world, main capitals in the world, but also every single city where you find French people on planet Earth.
Okay. And next question is, what was that moment that made you decide that you wanted to do this newspaper?
Well, always being interested in communication. So back in my business school, I was in charge of, I was doing marketing studies. So I'm always interested in sales, marketing, meeting people, getting to know more about people. So that's one side. Then also writing. I've always been writing a lot. So writing books, essays, and blogging back in China. Everything was new, so I was running my own blog and writing also for the newspapers there. And the first thing I did when I came to Hong Kong was also writing in the newspaper, just sharing my passions, history, culture. And well, when the previous owner said, I want to sell back my shares, so I said, okay, hand them over, and I started this story here. It was 3 years back.
Yeah. So next question is, what advice or tips would you give to the people that would want to pursue something you're doing? Let's say both ends, because you said newspaper and business, right?
Well, newspaper is not exactly a standard type of business. You have to be interested in the world you're living in the first place, and probably interested in people. So my own passion, my own goal I pursue is about knowing more people, so that especially a community newspaper helps knowing more people. The other idea is also promoting other people. I like that a lot. So you can do that with the media. That's the main driver for me, at least. And the business, I think it's always interesting because after a while you discover the standard model you've been acquiring is probably not sufficient. So you start to imagine new projects with your team. So we've been running events now for 2 years, especially one big event here, which has become the French Trophies of Hong Kong. So the trophy of the French people of Hong Kong, which is also about promoting people, but through real event happening, not only reading newspaper, online things. So things happen. So for instance, last year we've been rewarding some outstanding people, for instance, artists, entrepreneurs, charities, etc., and then promoting them through our network. So this aspect I like a lot. So when giving advices to people, says first being interested into the world you're living, into people, and business of course comes after that. I mean, but if you're not talented in business, or you don't develop skills into running a company, of course the adventure will stop at some point. So you have to imagine new ways of making money and still bringing value to the community, bringing value to the company too, because about selling the companies, what do you sell? What's the value of it? Is it only the customers? Is it the brand? What does it represent? Is it the missing link in the community? So many different things with media. You can see that at the moment with all the medias, they are reinventing themselves with paying models, with promoting some additional services to get profitability. And that's exactly the adventure we are in at the moment. Small level, small scale, but exactly the same issues like big medias like South China Morning Post or the New York Times, exactly the same thing. Visiting their premises, discussing with them, exactly the same problems.
Okay. And for your experience, how is it like in terms of the challenges in the process, and at the same time, what's very rewarding for you?
As I told you, what's very rewarding is the good you're making around you. So you can do a lot sharing good things, and especially last year with the COVID situation or the protest, the political situation, people were not too happy. Some of them lost their job, lost their business, they lost their customers. So we were here, and we were also a way for them to go on, to stay together, to keep together. So definitely the people we helped last year with making a promotion, advertising, rewarding them through these trophies, people were very thankful, and that to me that's at least I know every morning I'm waking up, I know what I'm doing, so I'm doing good. Some people don't like me, some people like me, but at least I know I can help some people. So that's very rewarding. And the goals, the objectives I'm setting to myself is still develop this newspaper. So at the moment we are based in Hong Kong. The economic situation is changing fast with China. So we are aiming at mainland China, at least the Greater Bay Area, to be probably the next step. So the basin, the market will be a bit larger for us. Now we have finance companies. Tomorrow we'll deal with logistics. we'll deal with some high-tech companies back in Shenzhen or in Guangzhou, and we are so close. So at some point, we'll get bigger also with the local companies getting bigger too. So that's the next step to me.
Sounds exciting.
Yeah, it is. Yeah. It is like every single business you're doing. If you keep to the pace and pay attention to the place you are and try to take advantage of the opportunities, it will always be exciting.
Okay. And next is, what do you feel makes you unique in terms of your personal approach, your authenticity?
First of all, we are unique because this is the only worldwide French-speaking media for expats. So we are, I guess our competitors is doing half of the audience we are doing. So we are already quite unique and proud of that. The reason for it is we mixed the local news, very close to people, practical tips to families, to people having trouble with getting visas, getting the vaccination, getting the right papers. So we help on that. That's why people read this media here. And at the same time, we are close to the big world and the politics, the economics, etc. So we give also insights on this. So this combination is quite powerful. And the next step that we have been added so far is getting close to people as persons. So meeting people in person, interviewing like you do at the moment, French entrepreneurs, French people, and then taking back, pulling them also into light using our media. And this is very powerful now. So it's not only telling stories, I like to tell stories, but started to discover that beyond stories, we really help people to go further. Because we open doors, we give them a way to express themselves, we make connections, etc., etc. That's really the moment we are at the moment we are now, and it makes it even more exciting.
And also for the unique part, you as a person.
Well, me as a person, every single entrepreneur brings its own personality into the business. I think I like people. I like to communicate. I like to learn from people, and that's probably people would feel that in the newspaper. This probably that's this media. They are listening to me. They are talking about me, about my neighbors, my problems, etc. So, of course, if you're sincere, if you're honest, people will feel that. And also, as you're dealing with a close community with those 10,000 French readers or so in Hong Kong, well, you can't disappoint too many people. If, for instance, if you have some political elections back in France, you can say, well, we are supporting this one or this one. You will lose half of your audience. So we try to be quite neutral, give insights and tips and practical tips to people. And that's what we do, and that's good enough. So you start to be a little bit humble. As a personality, I'm more outgoing. I like to show off sometimes a little bit, and I have to cool me down, because otherwise you will get enemies. It doesn't bring anything. So on the contrary, I start with this newspaper to learn to be more diplomatic, especially also with the situation at the moment with the press in China and those security laws we have to be careful. So it's really not the moment to be straightforward and say, I believe this is right or this is wrong, so you don't say that. Just bring information. Yeah, so at the same time you can be energetic, which I think I am, but sometimes you have to repress this and start to talk to everybody, because this is what we are meant as a community media.
Okay. And then next question, because you were talking about enemies as well earlier. How was your experience in the process, the journey, with supporters and people who didn't support you? How did you handle that? Or some people have more supporters, so.
That's probably one of the questions I like most. in all my businesses in the past lives, back in Europe or in China, always the same story. As soon as you have people attacking you, then you start to know you're in the right path, because it means what you're doing means something to people. Probably they get nervous because they see you're doing on their market, in their field, etc. Or you're so much innovating that people can't stay on the side and say asking weird questions, or will start to either attack you or be scared, and that's a very good sign. So each time I got this year, of course, with the newspaper, I got many people attacking me, attacking our news articles, etc. And that's a good sign. That means we mean something, we do something, we bring value, and of course, after a while, you start to pay attention to compliments, to supporters, and say, okay, I have a few enemies, which is normal. The day you don't have any enemies anymore, then that means you're nothing on the market. You have no impact. But as long as you have impact, of course, you have people being jealous, people being nervous, people being not happy with your point of view, or discomfort because of the market shares you are taking, etc., etc. It's fantastic. So I always look for those signs when I start a new business.
Okay, that's a fresh way to look at it.
Always,
your point of view.
always. The moment somebody say to you, "Hey, what do you think about that?" "Oh, that's nice." It means nothing to the person. And as long as the person say, "Oh, you should not do that." Okay, why? And then you say, "Oh, because, well, I feel a bit discomfort because I tried myself, but it didn't work." So, why did it not work? Then you're on solid ground here. That means they tried it. Why they tried it? Because it brings money. They have some customers' demand, etc. So as long as you're fighting or you're punching on something, then you're on solid ground. But somebody say, "Well, that's nice. Why not?" Means it doesn't bring any value to them. So the minute after, you will think of something else. But when people say, "Hey, you should not do that," why? So it means it's disturbing them, it's challenging them. So when it's challenging, that's good. You're bringing value. And of course, then you have to entertain this model to make regular money with it. But the moment you don't have any enemies, that's a very, very bad sign for your business.
Okay. Good insight.
Yeah.
And for the next question, this can apply to anybody that you know. Who do you, or could be two people, who do you look up to most?
Well, I've been inspired. When I came into journalism, I was being inspired by some large French newspapers like Le Monde. And yeah, we are in the French, the Foreign Correspondent Club. My actually mentor was the local correspondent for Le Monde, and I thank her for that. So that's very inspiring. A nice newspaper dealing with all type of topics, but also dealing with sociology, people, profiles. So I like those very, very type of information. So that's for the media part. Then, of course, in history, always being inspired by big reporters like Albert Londres. So Albert Londres was this reporter investing the bagne of Cayenne, so the penitentiary, the Devil Island in the West Indies, so where people were sent at some point. So those, of course, those large, big reporters investing very sensitive topic is very inspiring. I'm very far from it, but at some point, sometimes we are actually touching some very sensitive topics, or at least of interest for the audience, and we can definitely feel that we are bringing something. At least we raise the questions, and so that's always a good sign. I say, what would those big reporters would have done, etc., in my place? So that's inspiring. But I'm far from that.
Okay. And you mentioned earlier about expanding to the Greater Bay Area.
Yeah.
That's one thing.
Yeah.
Because the last question is, what is there that you're excited about?
Yeah.
That we can look forward to?
Yeah.
For the months to come or next year?
Well, at some point you would ask yourself what's going on in Hong Kong, what is the future of Hong Kong. This was probably the main driver of the protests, so young people were uncomfortable with the present situation. So some clues are brought now with China investing a lot in the south of China, especially in this project, with the main city being not Hong Kong but Shenzhen, will be probably the heart of the Greater Bay. But at that same moment, Hong Kong stays very specific on the with the finance industry. Some of the cities will be specialized, and that's probably the only area in Asia where you will have all type of industries together. In 1 hour time, you can check on your manufacturing in Dongguan. You can be in Shenzhen checking some new technologies to develop your company. Then you can check on logistics in the north of Macau. And then come back in the evening having a drink in Ripples Bay and checking your finance business online. So that's unique. You go to any other cities in the world, they are mainly specialized. When you add the production of this new area which includes 11 cities, it's equivalent to South Korea, 1 year revenue of South Korea. So that's very impressive. That's probably the first region in China, ahead of Shanghai, which used to lead in China, but now when you add all these connected cities in here, it's very exciting. The stakes also with China not being helped anymore by the US capitals because of this China-US war is also interesting, because how China will be able to handle the situation by itself. And this is new, so they try to create this new Asian market. So we don't know what will happen, because the COVID remixed the cards at some point, especially with India, which is not yet in the common market. But still, the way they invest in tourism in Hainan, logistics, finance, real estate, and especially new technologies, because they want to get rid of the dependency with the US chips, is very interesting to follow. And for a newspaper, of course, new customers, new stories to tell, a larger market to finance ourselves, probably a local correspondent in those big cities, one probably dealing with logistics, the other one will deal with high tech, etc. So new challenges. It's not about only dealing with expats here and what's the expat package this year, can I find a job in finance, how's the food and beverage, how's my French restaurant is doing. So maybe larger stakes. So that, of course, for a newspaper, connected to the situation, that's very exciting. We will have new stories to tell, new products to launch, and new services to provide, I guess.
Okay. Well, I guess that's a wrap, ladies and gentlemen.
Thank you. Yeah.
And once again, Hector Telmo, Didier.
Yeah, thank you so much, Hector.
Pleasure to have you.
Yeah, it was a pleasure to answer.
Yeah. Kinetic outcome.
Our aim is to provide value, so if you like what you watched, make sure you hit that like button, leave a comment, and subscribe. I'm also a financial advisor based in Hong Kong, so feel free to check the description box for my details and email or DM. And if ever you need video and photography services, the phenomenal videos you're watching right now are filmed by 𝙁𝙁𝙁. Lastly, if you love hip-hop music, rap, R&B, singing, whichever that sounds amazing to your ears, because I always do a lot of experiments with it, feel free to drop by my channel at SCF Saint or Saint Crossfade. Appreciate you for being part of this episode and more to come. Till next time.